call myself an intimacy surrogate. And what really is what that is for the men, for the work that I do with men, is a surrogate of deeper intimacy that isn't about being a sexual surrogate. It's about really touching into those intimate places, both mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then physically, really highlighting how the need for men to have care, really deep care of their souls, and finding a connection of that and their sexuality. So I help men who are looking to expand their sexuality and really look at their relationship patterns, interconnect that with their general sense of their own power and masculinity, and help find the dots of where those all intersect, which usually goes into much deeper things of their child upbringing and their relational nervous system, their fears of women, their just insecurities of self, and the stories that they've taken on, and just showing how they are infecting every part of their life, and how to bring those all in. And I also work with women. All of my work is really centered around sacral, womb, genital, all that work of the second chakra, really looking at how it's functioning and what it's really saying about our own sense of ourselves, freedom within ourselves, safety within ourselves, thus with each other, and how the sacral space really holds a lot of information that we can decode, that gives us insight of what's happening on many other levels of our system and way of being.
Really interesting. I want to quickly, jump back to some of the things you were saying about being an intimacy surrogate, because as you know, there are, I think they're called sex surrogates, right?
Yes.
Just sex, yeah. I've interviewed a lot of therapists and psychologists who have said, hey, when you guys are ready, because what you just described that you have done with men, I hear that a lot of our models do exactly that. And it's not what people would expect. People think it's just all about sexuality and sexual content. And when I'll interview a model, she'll tell me, no, we spent hours talking about what's going on with his family, what's going on with his,
Yes.
partner. And
Yes.
so going back to that, I've had a lot of psychologists say, hey, having someone who can act as a surrogate, even if there's no touch, because the issue with sex surrogacy is that it's not legal in most places.
Right.
But having a form of it, of someone who can know what the client or the patient is working through and working on, and then hold that space and kind of help them through it. So many therapists say like how deeply beneficial and healing that is and could be for their patients.
Yes. It is a somatic repatterning of your relating system. So I have so many men who come to me, they've been to therapists working on this from a mental standpoint. They've even maybe gone into see tantric providers for massage work and understanding how to sublimate energy and become more, expansively orgasmic. But it kind of gets stuck in function and still performance. And what I find, and the uniqueness of my work, and why it's intimacy surrogacy, is it's not about sex. It's not about the genitals at all. It's really coming back, sexually. I don't have, intercourse or penetration or anything like that with my clients. This is about bringing back an innocence of what erotic energy is. But more importantly, it's repatterning how safe you feel skin to skin with somebody. I was a birth doula for 7 years, so I understand very acutely the the power of skin to skin of that baby and that mother. And there's a part of me that's both that, you know, the Shakti lover, the name they use for my work is Shauna Shaktima. There's that Shakti lover, but also it's a really deep healing with the feminine that men need that goes back to Ma, to mother, to that just first sense of safety, skin to skin, holding while you're talking about the things that are the hardest things to be vulnerable about, especially a man. And that is, they need that space to know that they are safe. They won't be emasculated. They have a safe space to be all of who they are, not just strong, not just always directing, but they can be held. And most men have not had a woman since their birth that they have truly felt safe with.
It's interesting because this has come up now a few times in my interviews where I learned recently that in ancient times, men who went off to war before coming back home into their villages or whatever it was, they would go to these temples where there would be women that would heal them of whatever it was they saw or felt they did or whatever the case was. What is it about the feminine energy that is so deeply healing for men?
I love that story. And it's actually, I came across that, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago before my Tantra initiation, where I discovered the same. It was the temples that were set up for the men who came back from war. And the women tended to them on every level. So they attended the physical wounds that they were coming back with, the PTSD, their emotional resistance, all the fighting instinct that was in them. And through, you know, sacred love making, bring them back into their softness, bring them back into divinity outside of this protective armor so that they could soften enough to be safe to go back into the society, go back to their family. So they weren't ready to fight at every corner. They could drop that and then resource themselves to be ready for the next time. And I really, when I came across that, that just felt so true to who I am. Like, I don't consider, although I've been initiated in Tantra, I don't teach Tantra, although I bring in so many practices. I really connect to that stories of the Dakinis of old who were really healers of men. And I remember when the first time a man had watched me in a ceremony all night with another man, and he came to me the next morning and he was just like, "You're a healer of men." And I was like, I knew that was true, and I had no idea what to do with it. I had no idea what to do with it. And so my path, as you know, people are often asking me where I got trained for what I do, and there is no training for it. This is my life. This is who I am. I have a lot of understanding of religious imprinting on sexuality and family disconnection and, you know, relationship, and I have had such a big path. It's really the medicine to the masculine that the feminine most can bring is her full authenticity, her full receptivity, her softness. And it's healing. Most men find, and it's not from placating, it's not from people pleasing, it's just from being honestly available and receptive to the truth of who they are. They feel, just in texting, a sense of like greater masculinity, power, puffed up. And they're like, what is that? It's just they haven't experienced really a safe place on all the levels where they don't feel a woman is manipulating something. They really crave the authentic space where they can drop the mask, where they can recognize the mask that they're always wearing in relation to the feminine everywhere they go. And they don't know that until they meet somewhere really safe, where it's like, drop all that, show me who you are. Let's talk about this and know that you're not alone. This is normal. We're all working through this. And for so many of them that hold such a fear and anxiety and anger, even with the feminine and their own self relating with the feminine, that's just like, thank you. And I've had so many men say, you've shown me what true love is. Like just the true love that any human gives another. And I won't settle for less than that. Thank you for reminding me what it could be. It's not a game. It's true soul to soul connection. And that's been surprising for many to find out how many men are really aching for that.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on this and ask if you have any others that you can think of, but I started this project 2 years ago, interviewing so many of Live Jasmine's members. I mean, the platform itself has like 50 million members on a day. It is
Wow.
massive. Yeah. There's so many people, and I've talked to many of them, and they'll tell me about their experiences with Jasmine's models. And so many of them have a story, like something brought them there. There are members that are veterans that have been through war, and there's something so soothing about talking to this model. And they'll tell me, and I'll ask the model for confirmation. The model will tell me and confirm that he's never asked her to get undressed, although he could. He's seeking more than anything connection and like a place to be held and just seen and heard. So when you mentioned a safe place, I I think sometimes part of what makes environments like Jasmine or your container with your clients so safe is because it's already like, hey, you're allowed to talk about one of the most vulnerable things here, sex, right? That is like, I mean, it could be one of, if not the most vulnerable thing. We could talk about our fantasies, our experiences, what we want. And so there's already this permission to be vulnerable, you know? And once that knowing like that's allowed is on the table, so many other vulnerable things seem to come. But you're right. Like I have seen myself just learning through these interviews that men, so many men are deeply craving just like connection, just true connection, but I don't even know if they always know that's what they want. Like, I think a lot of men come to Live Jasmine looking like, oh, I'm going to get turned on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But then 10 years later, they're still talking to the same exact model. And I'm like, are you there for sexual content or what are you really there for? If you've been talking to this one person for so many years, it's about connection. I'm curious, what are some misconceptions about men, specifically since you do work with so many of them, that you've noticed are really prevalent, really out there, but you have seen firsthand it's just not true?
Well, there's so many ideas of what men are all about and what they care about. And I have been blessed to bring in so many beautiful men that I have felt just lucky, like so lucky. Like, thank you for letting me know there is a man like you in the world. And I've come and dropped into right in front of you as a mirror of how amazing your heart is. And to let you know, like, we need you strong. We women, the world, we need you strong. We need you good-hearted men strong. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm in service to. And then also how that affects other women, because I'm helping this man really come and understand the feminine. And I think that's part of the piece that gets misconstrued. I don't bring in men as an escape for fantasy, as an escape of pleasure. That's not what we're there for. And it's deeper, it's much deeper. And I have men who are just really, yearning to understand the feminine at a deeper level. It's a mystery to them. And so a huge part of what I teach is how to understand the sensual and energetic languages of the feminine, which most men feel very disconnected from. But when I bring them in, so many men are way more energetic, are way more sensually attuned than they know. If you know anything about the erotic languages from Jaya, like she talks about those 5 erotic languages, and most think I think they're just sexual. They're in for the pump, and most women think that that's who men predominantly are. They're there to pump and get it done, and like kind of be selfish for their own pleasure and be done. And there's so many men who come to me who are really yearning to understand when they kind of cross a little invisible feminine booby trap. Like I've had men who, while fully clothed, maybe I've been sitting on a couch with my knees up, have come and spread my legs to come in and give me a hug. And I could feel the energetic breach, even though I'm clothed, and there was something very innocent about it, which turned into a teaching moment. Hey, you may not realize this is the impact this has on the feminine. Like you open my legs without consent, and it doesn't matter that I'm clothed, I can feel that opening. And for so many women who carry sexual trauma, that's a trigger. I don't even have the sexual trauma and I could feel it. And so many men are like, I have no idea. That's why that woman ghosted me. That, like, they start dropping in the places where the women in their life or that they come across aren't educating them in a way that doesn't emasculate them, doesn't make them feel stupid and more insecure. They are yearning for a feminine. Just show me, because I want to please. I want to know what I'm doing. I want to respect your boundaries. I want to create pleasure for you. And I think that's a lot where women don't, have a lot of wounding with the masculine. And my work has really like blessed me with a lot of good hearts that I'm just like, yay, go out and love better from this place. And there's a lot of men wanting to love better.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting that you shared that particular story example of someone moving your legs open and you having to explain to them, hey, that was a violation. I know that wasn't your intention, but that's what it was. And it's that learning moment. I recently interviewed a sex therapist who's a man. There's not a ton of those, by the way. And I asked him, he had been a therapist, I think, for a while, but what kind of led him to the path of sex therapy was during the Me Too movement. And he said that part of the reason was because he noticed so much shame in himself. Like when he was getting all the Me Too messaging, he was like, okay, shame, shame, shame. And I do feel bad. But what he realized was missing was the other piece. Like, okay, we've messed up. We understand. But how do we do better? Like, it can't just be shame. What are your thoughts around, after your experience in your field and career, the studying you've done? What are your thoughts around why we're so disconnected from our sexuality in our society?
It's a great question, and it's definitely the focus of my work. As I said at the beginning, I think the sacral space energetically, as the tantrics and the Taoists hold, like this is our life force. And so all of our personal wounds in life, but also our generational epigenetic, trauma that we've carried on. Remember, we've been in our grandmother's wombs, I've started, and I talk to people about, grandparents who've lived through World War II or genocide, fleeing another country. It's like our genetics are part of this. There's so much trauma that our bodies are really holding on an energetic level, I feel. And as the center of our life force, I think our sacred sacral space is holding the majority of it. And it comes through in our sex dysfunction. So I work with women on looking like, physically fibroids and infertility, and like all of that shows up, numbness, having no ability to orgasm. Like this is all, to me, trauma that isn't just about sex. It's our, it's our mother wound, and it's our father wound. It's our first understanding of intimate belonging, because that sexual connection, that joining with another, is so vulnerable. Like our life can't be fully orgasmic and fun and alive and connected to the divine. There's a reason we all say, oh God, oh God, oh God, when we come. It's like, it's this place of deeper connection to something bigger. And we're all just trying to survive. There's no time for that. There's no time for that. And we're missing out. It's draining us. It's draining our power, our life force, our ability to make change in the world,
For anyone who's listening and they're like, I resonate with that. Yep. I don't have time for anything. They are drained. They're not excited about life. Or they feel really disconnected. What's a practical first step for people that are listening where they can take just a simple practical step in moving back in the direction of pleasure?
Yeah. Again, it's so much about slowing down, like taking the time and having no goal of where it goes, whether that's in your own self-pleasure or when you're connecting with somebody else. There's a need. We're so disconnected. We're so heads floating around in life, just all in this mental sphere, and we're really somatically disconnected. So it means, if it's around sexual excitement, or even, for women and men, a lot of times I'll have them reconnect to their lingam, to their cock, as a brother, to slow down, to watch their movements, to connect breathing, to not be trying to actually have an ejaculation, but to reconnect with what that feels like. And women need to do the same, and how to extend that and interrelationally, how to dance in other layers of pleasure. Pleasure isn't just penetration. Most women don't find full pleasure in penetration anyway. There's so much more. And there's, and again, slowing down and playing with a lot of space and energy. By the time when you do only have 5 minutes, it's so built up that 5 minutes is explosive. It's not like, oh, let's get to it, or like, hurry up, I got to get back. It's fueling. It's everything. It doesn't matter. The time in that space doesn't matter, but really slowing down everywhere else and reconnecting. So many of us, because the energy of life is so hectic, we're either guarded. Which means we are, on one hand, maybe overstimulated with life. And so we just kind of numb out. Or there's just, we just numb out. We can't disconnect. We're either numb or overloaded. And a lot of women, or especially if they're mothers, that's the energetics that a lot of men don't understand when they're going right into some kind of physical intimacy, and they don't understand a woman, her energy system with children, life, whatever. Her cycle is either super sensitive or numb, shut down.
If you could give one message to everyone in the world about human sexuality or human connection, what message would it be?
It's really all about belonging. And it's a true belonging to self. It's allowing ourselves to have a belonging with another when we share it. And it's a belonging with the divine when we go to those realms of full surrender. It's really whatever is out of, or in dysfunction or out of place in there, there's a missing of some sense of belonging, safety and belonging, safety to belonging to myself, where I can express myself clearly, say what I desire, say what hurts, say when it's a no. When, yeah, there's just, I think it's really about really developing, we all inherently as humans, as much as we want to be connected and we're so craving connection, so many of us are walking through life feeling really alone, even in marriages, even with best friends. We feel alone in our experience, and sexuality is a way to really heal at the deepest core our sense of belonging to ourselves, to another, to the divine. And that's what sacred sexuality, I think, is really pointing us to, is like, we're okay. We don't need to go into these mechanisms for attachment and, like, we belong. Everything's okay. We can relax and really be in the love and the connection that's here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You love. So good to talk to you today.
Yeah, I'm really happy you shared your perspective regarding men.
And around this stuff, sexuality especially, they're in a small box of who they get to be as sexual beings according to the world and according to women's perceptions of them. And they don't know the full expansiveness that's there. And but so many want it. They're ready for it. And I it's a service. I love being able to provide this for my sisters, because not all of us really want to be in relationships where that kind of teaching to the man in our relationship is. So having these women out there like me, like the women who work at like Jasmin, who are really doing this kind of deep intimacy healing and holding, yeah, this is in service to better relationships. This isn't just getting a guy off or giving him a distraction or fantasy and escape. This is creating new ways that we all get to be better together.
Very beautifully said. I'm actually going to keep all that in the interview. It's so good. That part. Yeah. So